The theme of this particular session was the feminine, the masculine, divine. And because I've done a lot of studying of the ancient Vedantas, the pure books of yoga, the theme turned out to be quite easy to talk about because the ancient Vedas describe two facets of the God force. And one is definitely masculine, the other is definitely feminine. So I'll start describing what these are. The world of invisible, formless energy is the divine feminine. The faceless God, which resides underneath the atom, that is the source of manifestation, is the feminine side of Bhairava, Shiva, God force, whatever name you want to give it. And within the mind, stillness of the mind and the gap between two thoughts is described as the feminine. And the gap between two thoughts is technically called pure consciousness. And it actually exists. In other words, I took 10 people into silence today, and when we interviewed some of them after the meditation, and the report was that the name wasn't there, first name, last name wasn't there, the body awareness was not completely there, but there was something aware that meditation was going on. And that something is a field. It's a field of consciousness. You'd be interested to know that 3,000 years ago, the yogis were saying that space is not dead. Space is pulsing with a divine energy, which we call our Lord. So imagine 3,000 years ago, Tantra Lokas, Bhagavad Gita, Shiva Sutra, they were talking about a pulsation of consciousness in space. 3,000 years later, you have the M theorist, string theorist, saying, folks, space is not a vacuum. Space is alive with a buzzing energy, and that energy is conscious. The way yoga discusses the feminine and the masculine, yoga says, there's a pulse like this, and the primordial sound of the God force underneath the atom and in space is Om. See, Om doesn't have an Indian passport. Om is a primordial, prehistoric sound. And it's the sound of the pulsation of an energy field that envelops our world. And what quantum physicists are finding out now, and the yogis knew it 3,000 years ago, is that this pulse all around you is conscious. And what's more, it responds to your consciousness. You can ask yourself a question. If a huge group of scientists announced on BBC News tomorrow that it has been proven that all of you are surrounded by a pulse of conscious energy that responds to your thoughts and manifests your thoughts in your life, how would any of you change tomorrow? You would change. If they gave you scientific evidence, you would change. By the way, the scientific evidence is there already. You might not be ready to listen. But I'll tell you what the scientific evidence is. It goes back to the 1940s. Anyways, let's come back a little bit to feminine and masculine. The part of your mind that is still, the part of mind that is in meditation, the part of the mind that is not drowning in passing thoughts and emotions is the divine feminine. So the Vedantas describe the feminine as coolness, silence, meditative, and powerful action in inaction. So you might think, wait a minute, how could one perform powerful action in inaction? What I'd like to tell you, for what it's worth, is my hunch about what's going to happen to mankind in the next century. See, you have two types of work. There's the person who says, I will bulldoze through nature, I will bully people, I will get out the tanks and the machine guns, and I'll change the result to my desired result. But there's another kind of action altogether. What if we start having humans who discover the secret of adjusting their subtle vibrational frequencies so that the energy field around you is vibrating in tune with the natural forces? So then suddenly, instead of tanks and bazookas and 14 hours of work per day, you silence your mind. That increases the vibrational frequencies of your energy field. And when your energy field falls in tune with all of that out there, then you can suddenly change the movement of the atom. We think the atom is something solid. You know, they tell you the building block of this world is the atom. And if the world is solid, then the building block of it must be super solid. That's not true at all. The atom is 99% empty. And the 1% that's inside the atom is information and probability. This is very strange, huh? That our world, this solid building you're seeing, is made of atoms, but the inner structure of this building is empty. And the only thing in the inner structure of this building is information and probability. And you say, wait a minute, so should we run out of this auditorium because the building block is empty? And the answer is no. You have no idea what constructed this auditorium. Do you know what constructed New York City? Thoughts. New York City comes from the minds of the architects and whoever conceived of those skyscrapers. I come from Iran. In 1979, we had miniskirts. By 1980, people were veiled. Within 9 months, from the miniskirt to the veil. What happened? Consciousness. New York City is made of consciousness. Tehran changed consciousness. So it went from miniskirt to veil in 9 months. My turn again. In other words, Paris is consciousness. New York City is consciousness. One of the gurus came to New York City. I was hosting her. And we went to 4th Avenue. And she went, I said, Guruji, what happened? She said, so many thoughts. She was shaking off the thoughts. The Vedas say this is a thought world. So let's come back to the Divine Feminine. Divine Feminine is the gap between two thoughts. Divine Feminine is the coolness of energies instead of the hotness. Divine Feminine is massive action through inaction. In other words, imagine if your intentions started to stir the atoms. Would you need to work 14-hour days? You're seeing right now a rift in this world. You're seeing two camps of people in this world. There's very fearful people fighting for the remaining material resources. You have another group experimenting with manifestation of life through a silent, feminine, meditative mind. Feminine, we're not talking about women or men, the Vedantas talk about the feminine part of the God force and the masculine part of the God force. So you can have lady generals and you can have gentlemen hairdressers. That doesn't come into this talk. It's the nature of the God force. So on the one hand, we have a silent mind, stillness, meditation, and then in your body we have chakras and nadis. So Kriya Yoga, what I teach, says that in your body you have a network of 72,000 passageways, like wiring inside a building. If this wiring and piping is clogged, you're not going to feel well, because the force that's keeping you alive cannot go through clogged pipes. The divine feminine needs to flow through these 72,000 passageways. And Kriya Yoga solves that problem by specific kind of breathing that unclogs these passageways. Let's hop over to the masculine side now. The masculine side of the mind is thought and passing emotions. And the moment you believe your thoughts, you now have another problem. It's called ego. In other words, when you say Kambiz Naficy, you have a problem. Because you're attaching a name, a social security number, and a passport to an invisible God force. And nature doesn't understand Kambiz Naficy, French passport, US passport. Dolphin doesn't know what to do with that. The eagle doesn't know what to do with that. So the masculine now starts to put a name on the feminine, unmanifest creative force. And then it puts in a me. My property, this is my fence, so no trespassing. And then we get a whole bunch of problems. Other aspects of the masculine, you have these chakras, these invisible passageways in the body, that's the feminine. And then you have a force that I'll be awakening this week in my workshop, Kundalini Shakti. Kundalini is like the presence of the Holy Spirit within your physical body. In other words, particular types of breathing changes your vibrational energy system, and a God-given version of the Holy Spirit starts to move through your body. And Kundalini is hot, while the divine feminine is cool. So the chakras are feminine, cool energy, invisible passageways. Kundalini is fiery. So I have students sitting in Minnesota with t-shirts in the middle of the winter, sweating, because Kundalini has been aroused and is going through these passageways. Kundalini pierces the chakras and starts to clean them, so that your piping system, your plumbing system, starts to get cleansed. What is the net result of that? Well-being. Well-being is defined as your entire energy field vibrating at the right frequency. So I'm going to tell you my theory of the next century coming up. You can go to church or the synagogue or the mosque, pray as long as you want in Arabic, Hebrew, and English. A force underneath the atom is going to say, nada. It doesn't understand the language. If you talk to a scientist and say, our Lord is made of energy, you know what the scientist is going to say? Scientist is going to say, I don't know about the Lord, but energy is measured in waves and vibrations. The language of energy is waves and vibrations. So what did the 3,000-year-old books of yoga say? Spanda. Waves, vibrations. Matrika. Matrika says Om. That has a seed mantra within the audible mantra that you're hearing. Om. This is the audible. That's the masculine. The feminine version of Om is inaudible. It's the bija. It's the seed. It's the silent seed vibrating underneath the mantra. And that vibration impacts the forces of nature. In other words, if you're willing to believe that your God is made of energy, any scientist will tell you energy is made of waves and vibrations. Matrika, spanda. If you are vibrating at the wrong frequency, you can pray and pray and pray, but you're on the wrong channel. The God force loves you, but it doesn't speak English. One of our problems in traditional religion, we try to put human adjectives on a subatomic energy. We say, the Lord is forgiving. Now, imagine you're a pulsation smaller than the electron, and somebody's calling you forgiving. What does forgiving mean? How to communicate? Right waves, right vibrations. Now, let me get into what I'm teaching this week. If the problem is your nadis and your chakras, what I'm teaching is called Kriya Yoga. It was introduced to the modern world by Kriya Babaji Nagaraj some 1800 years ago. And his motto was, breathlessness equals deathlessness. What Babaji discovered was by manipulating the breath, the respiration, you could bring down the vibrational frequencies of the brain. And when the vibrational frequencies of the brain changed, your metabolism would change, your heartbeat would change, and your breathing rate would change. So here's how Kriya Yoga works. I get my students together, they close their eyes, and I start guiding them with some breathing exercises. And the way Kriya Yoga works, imagine three wagons of a train. In Kriya Yoga, the locomotive, the first wagon, is attention. So Svetlana is sitting in the class, and I say, take your attention between the eyebrows. That's the first wagon. The locomotive is attention. Following the locomotive is breath. So when she puts attention on the third eye, following attention is the breath. It's the actual breath. Following the breath is the life force. So you've got a train with three wagons. Locomotive is attention. Attention goes to the third eye. Following attention is breath. Following breath is prana. So in Kriya Yoga, the teacher is guiding you. You take a train with 3 wagons to various parts of your body. You put your attention on a chakra. Following attention is the breath. Following the breath is the life force. And then we do this for 72,000 energy centers. Now, my students are here. They obviously didn't go through 72,000, but they don't really know what's going on. They're just doing breathing exercises. But what's happening in the background is that we're taking the breath to very important areas in the body where the feminine divine force has to pass through. If those passageways are clogged, you cannot get to the right frequency to talk to nature. You're vibrating at a low point. Doesn't matter how much you pray. You're vibrating at the wrong frequency. It's like the ambulance service trying to talk to the yellow taxi cabs in Manhattan. It doesn't work. They're on two different channels. God is kind, God is made of love, but it's energy. If you're talking to energy, you must be on the right frequency. You can't speak Italian to God. Don't tell the Pope. Yeah. Okay, so now let's imagine we've fixed one of the problems. You've got 72,000 energy centers. You take the breath to these energy centers, and the kind of breathing that you're doing is making your blood more alkaline instead of acidic. So Kriya Yoga makes your blood alkaline. Alkaline blood flows into your brain, and suddenly your mind is calm. So we're changing your blood composition. As the mind settles down from 14 cycles per second to 3.5 cycles, then many of my students today were saying, I don't know if I was here or someplace else. I wasn't asleep, but my name wasn't Isabella anymore. So what happened to me? We call it turiya. As non-acidic blood rushes into your brain, the frontal lobe of your brain quiets down. What happens is you lose your ego. You lose your first name and your last name. And you don't hear this microphone, but you're fully mindful of the moment. It's a strange experience. You don't have first name and last name. You're not a social personality, but you're intensely in this moment as awareness. Awareness. You're just a mindful energy field. It's called turiya. And there's a cosmetic effect to turiya. How old am I? Please don't break my heart.
97.
Right. See, I'm 65 years old. If you look at my classmates, some of them are dead already. The ones who are still living look 12 to 15 years older. With Kriya Yoga, you can change your metabolism. When metabolism changes, you have less wear and tear in your body. Your heart is beating slower. You're not having to breathe as many times. And your nervous system is calmer. All of this happens automatically because the blood changes through breathing. And you're channeling this energy, the life force, through your channelways. Now let's imagine that we've gotten rid of the first problem. In other words, your body now has 72,000 clean networks in it for the life force to go through. But now you have a problem. It's called baggage. Baggage in ancient India was called samskara. Samskara means when you were growing up, from time of birth to the age of 7, something happened to you and you picked up your personal perception of what happened. And at least 50% of the perceptions you picked up during childhood are your own inventions. In other words, daddy divorced mommy, you went into the room and you thought it was your fault because you got bad grades. That's called the samskara. Or you went to the high school prom with the wrong date and you decided to lower your self-worth. These are all subjective perceptions. They're unreal. Ask 5 sisters who had an angry dad. Who was Papa? You're going to get 5 different answers. That's a samskara. Because every sister had their own perception of who Papa was. But this is an enormous problem. Why? From the time you're born until you're 7, you've picked up all of your fundamental beliefs about life. Money, sexuality, whether you're lovable or not, who God is, does God love you or not? all of your fundamental sense of security, money, sexuality, whether you're likable or not, all of that is already in place by the age of 7. It's called your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is called the habit mind. In other words, by the 7th year, it gives you all of the rules of survival. Except there's a problem there. Because the rules of survival, according to your subconscious mind, come from the judgment of a 1-year-old to a 7-year-old. Let's imagine your dad was an airline pilot and he missed 2 of your birthdays. 6th birthday, 7th birthday. At the age of 7, you decide that men are emotionally unavailable. You have a man wound as a woman. But that law went into your subconscious when you were 7. And 50% of it, by the way, is invented. Because your dad was working for TWA and he was flying to Hong Kong, had 14-hour flights, and couldn't make it to 2 of your birthdays. So it's not necessarily true that men are emotionally absent. Or you grew up in Iowa with a group of 9 people in a barn and you thought that you will forever be poor. That's written in your subconscious mind. Now you're about to make $120,000 in a foreign exchange deal in Wall Street and you break out in cold sweat. Why? Now, let's talk about samskaras. See, we've cleaned up your body. So your body is now ready to receive the God force. But there's this heavy suitcase full of your personal interpretations stuck in your subconscious mind. How do we clean up that story? Let me first tell you about the problem of the subconscious. The subconscious mind is controlling 95% of your life. Do you know how many beautiful books are in the Omega bookstores right now? Unbelievably powerful, beautiful books. And you go and order a cup of tea with honey, just to be politically correct. And you sit on the balcony and you read one of the most powerful books available in that bookstore. How much of that do you think you've absorbed when you wake up tomorrow? And what does this mean? 1%. 1%. The book is incredible, and the book will have changed your life forever because you saw the topic and it intrigued you, and you're going to follow up. So you haven't forgotten the book. The book has changed you forever. My question is, when you wake up the next morning, are you different? The answer is no. You know why? Because all of the foundational laws of behavior are in your subconscious. And if your subconscious disagrees with wealth, it's going to do 3 things. So let's say you grew up in Iowa in a barn with 9 other kids. You didn't have a shoe until you were 4. Now you're in Wall Street, but you didn't have a shoe until you were 4. And your subconscious has a law that everybody in the Tyler family has always been poor. Okay? Now you're about to do a foreign exchange deal for $120,000 in 4 minutes. You know what's going to happen? 3 things are going to happen. Number 1, your subconscious is going to stop you from literally seeing the $120,000 deal. I'll quickly give you an example. I had a lady student with a poverty consciousness. I said to her, walk me to your ATM, hit the balance button, show me the slip. She brought out the slip and she said, Kambiz, it says 10,500, so I'm really low. I said to her, hit the balance button again and read me the second slip. She got it out. She said, it says 10,500. On the third slip, I grabbed her. I brought the slip here, and I said, count the zeros. There was 105,000 in there. So problem number one, your subconscious condition for poverty is not going to see a zero on an ATM slip. This is quite unbelievable to you. But they've done studies at Harvard University. They took a person with poverty consciousness, laid out a 110,000 word article about how the stock market is taking off. In that article, there were 2 words about recession and poverty. The subconscious of that person immediately went to those 2 words, didn't read the other 108,000 words. So problem number one, you literally don't see anything that's right in front of your eyes that goes against the laws of your subconscious. That's problem one. Problem two, by the way, I'm not going to talk about problems. Just at the end, I'll give you the solutions. I like to torture people. So, problem number two, if you believe that we live in a quantum world where the atom responds to your repetitive thoughts, then we have a second issue. If you grew up in a poor home, your repetitive thoughts are about lack of money. You're constantly broadcasting the next future recession. Like this morning, somebody said to me, what if I have the intention of finding great love in my life and I'm not finding it? I'm just making up I'm modifying the question, okay? What if I have the intention of finding love and I'm not finding love? What's going on? I'm telling you, intention is nice to have, but if your subconscious had a father who broke your mama's heart, and therefore you find men to be highly untrustable, then you can set your intention on love, but your subconscious saying, no. Men are dangerous. They broke mama's heart. She was crying for 20 years. You see? The intention is good, but it cannot overrule the subconscious. Okay, so one problem is you don't read the part of the article that talks about the stock market going up. That's the first problem. In other words, subconscious has selective perception. It only reads the part about poverty. Second problem, if you believe that underneath the atom there's a force that responds to your thoughts, then all day and all night your subconscious is broadcasting thoughts that men are dangerous, that poverty is going to continue, that you're going to be psychosomatically ill because in your family there's a lot of illness, whatever your programming was. By the way, on point number 2, I don't want you to question this statement. There is an apparatus called the electron microscope. The electron microscope is designed to see electrons as fleeting units of energy. What they found is very interesting. If you're a scientist wanting to see an electron, the electron will appear as a unit. If you turn your head away, if a human turns their head away from the electron microscope, suddenly the electron turns into invisible wave. In other words, there is something in subatomic particles that knows that you're watching. This is fact. This is not my theory. Goes back to the 1940s. So if you want to know the truth about quantum physics, in the 40s, they found that subatomic particles respond to your consciousness. In the ancient Vedas, we talk about siddhi powers. One of the siddhi powers is to influence manifestation through your focused and powerful mind. So 3,000 years ago, they were talking about influencing the atom. Okay, let's get back to the subconscious mind. So far, the subconscious is stopping you from reading the right words in the Sunday paper. It's called selective perception. In other words, if you have low self-worth and somebody really handsome is smiling at you, you don't see the handsome person. You refuse to see that person because you think that you're not attractive. Has nothing to do with your physical beauty. Nothing. Same thing with wealth. Same thing with losing weight, by the way. If your subconscious is programmed for 160 pounds, you'll eat so many salads that you'll come down to 45, and then you go back to 160. Time and time after. Time and time again. Because your subconscious is programmed for 160. You'll come down, but you go up. Because you're not willing to accept 45 or 65, whatever. You're not willing to accept it. Okay, so problems with the subconscious mind. Whatever got programmed into you by the age of 7, wealth, sexuality, whether you're beautiful or not, whether you're handsome or not, whether you're worthwhile or not, all of those are laid down in a computer. That computer drives 95% of your actions, thoughts, and life results. And that computer causes 3 problems. Number 1, you don't see the beautiful person smiling at you because you think you're unattractive. So, first problem, selective perception. Second problem, you sabotage and drive away grace when it's coming towards you. So if you're a foreign exchange dealer who didn't have a shoe in Iowa until the age of 4, and $1 million contract is on the table, you're going to sabotage. You're going to have too much beer the night before your important sales meeting. You will sabotage. You'll ruin the deal. Guaranteed. Why? Because your subconscious is a thermostat. If you're set for $40,000, $120,000 is uncomfortable. If you think you're unattractive and somebody really handsome says hello, you get very uncomfortable. It's a thermostat. Third problem, your subconscious mind calls the atoms over. It's dealing with literal, metaphysical manifestation. Okay, that was the bad news. But let's talk about the good news. Massive, quick transformation is so unbelievably easy that it defies the human mind. Now, I'll tell you why it's easy, because you're already doubtful of my statement. Do you know why every single student in the past 40 years has come to the Omega Institute? Like you ask a question, why are all these people coming here? Year after year, season after. Why, what is, now I'm getting controversial, this is the nice one. Okay, every single person who's come to this healing center, why have they come here? Okay, some people say, well, I want to connect with God. I'm looking for oneness. I'm looking for actual contentment and peace. Here's the way it happens. The New York State Penitentiary takes you in, behind bars. Omega takes you out from behind bars. And do you know which bars I'm talking about? Your entire life is fought in the mind. The Vedantas say there is no New York City. New York City is in the minds of the architects. If you ask the wind, where is Cincinnati and where is Tehran, Iran? The wind doesn't know, it just moves. The wind doesn't know flags, doesn't know boundaries. We make these up. This is a mind world. You make up countries. You make up cities with your architectural ideas. And you make up your own doom. If you want to improve, first thing you must accept, if you're transforming, the entire battle that you're fighting for enlightenment is right here. Has nothing to do with New York City. Your happiness or hell is right here. Nowhere else. This is the battlefield. First assumption. Second assumption, if you want to grow, don't go for the safe route. Safe route doesn't work. You know why? Your computer controlling 95% of your life, subconscious, lays down the rules. If you want to defy the rules of your subconscious, you're walking out of your comfort zone. Walking out of your comfort zone to you is risky. To nobody else, to you. Let's say your dad was an airline pilot and he was a playboy. You saw your mama crying for 13 years because dad was unavailable, infidel, and gone most of the time. Your perception at the age of 7 as a little girl was men are unavailable, unsafe, and hurt women. That went in at 7. At 27, you may have picked up a different perception. Okay? Now, you go to second year of college, an available man who calls you exactly on time and brings you Valentine cards on time says hello. And it's time for you to say yes to a serious date. Now, to your roommate, that's extremely easy. It's like, what's wrong with you? Wear your best dress and go to the Italian restaurant. You are having a massive heart attack. Why? Because it's only you, the 7-year-old inside you, who thinks this is unsafe. Now, why is transformation so easy? The reason transformation is easy is because you're standing in a comfort zone that says men are unsafe. Right here, there could be a happy dating life. In here, dating life is extremely threatening. But here's the question. If you came here, would something kill you or not? Take the example of a claustrophobic person is in an elevator, dying. The person next to them on the elevator is not dying. The question is, does the elevator have teeth? Does it? The elevator doesn't have teeth, but if you have claustrophobia and the doors closed, you go into shock. Now, why is personal growth so easy? Everybody that has ever come to the Omega Institute, one reason. Don't get mad at me. I know some of you are seeking God, but this is God. If you never fell in love, and you suddenly fall in love, that's a form of God. If you never had money and suddenly you make $120,000, you're free. If you're afraid of heights and suddenly you're not, that's it. You see what I'm saying? In other words, institutions like this, they want to free you from the internal mental prison that's keeping you limited. It's done through Qigong, it's done through painting, it's done through the shamans, doesn't matter. All of them are trying to tell you, my dear friend, over here, there's no enemy waiting for you. It's only you who's afraid of the elevator. You know, I do this for 90 days. I take people through the circle, and I slowly convince them that there's no enemy waiting for you outside your comfort zone. In the beginning, you have to do a lot of convincing, Because people get terribly frightened if they want to go against the programming of the subconscious mind. But it's just programming of a 7-year-old. And somebody says, Kambiz, you have no idea what I went through. I literally had a dad who beat me with a belt. So don't give me theory. I was beaten. And I'm telling you, still, even if you were beaten, 50% of your perception of what happened is still made up. I'm not calling you a liar. I'm saying as a child, you superimposed your own subjective ideas on what was happening. That's why you can always interview 5 sisters and get 5 stories about the childhood. You'll never get the same story. It's called Samskara. You make up your own story, you live in your own story, and you think that if you step here, something awful is going to happen. Some of you are already mad at me, because what I'm saying is against the programming of your computer. Let me do a grand finale and then ask questions. Okay? Is that okay? No. Go ahead, ask me a question.
I wanted to know, how do I get rid of the samskaras?
Okay.
Yeah.
Now we get to the final part of my speech. I'm going to give you a very methodical way for massive transformation. Now, the transformation is extremely simple. You know, like for somebody who's afraid of an elevator, to step into the elevator, physically speaking, there's no danger, but you feel danger. So I'm going to give you the recipe for how I get you to step out of your own conceptual danger. Number 1 is called identify. Step 1, identify. Identify means go back to childhood, figure out which incident caused the original perception that's giving you the wound. Like mom and dad get divorced, that's the incident. Your perception is, I had just gotten a C- in English, and I think I was the cause of their divorce. I literally have adult students who still today believe that because they did poorly on an exam, that their parents got divorced. We're talking about a 48-year-old person who studied psychology. So don't even go to your logical mind. Subconscious does not dance to the tune of your logical mind. Forget it. We have to speak the language of the subconscious. Okay, step 1. Identify the original set of events and what perception you picked up from that event. If you went to the prom with the wrong date, what was your perception when you came home? You didn't go out with the captain of the football team, you went out with the head of the chess club. You came home disappointed. What was your perception? The reality makes no difference. It's whatever perception you decided on. That's what hurts you, not the event. The prom has 0 effect on you. It's your perception. Okay, step 1, identify. Identify the events and your perceptions following the event. That's step 1. Step 2, reprogramming. Subconscious mind is a computer full of wires. If you think that you have low self-worth because, I don't know, you loved your uncle and he had a heart attack when you were 6, and you decided that God doesn't love you at the age of 6. How do we reprogram this? Several techniques for rewiring your mind. Number 1, affirmations. Continue saying short sentences in the present tense that are exactly the opposite of your wound. If men are untrustable, keep affirming throughout the day that there are some men who would like to stay close and caring to their women. Doesn't matter if you believe it, just keep saying it. Second technique, visualize, picturesque. The subconscious mind likes picturesque, visual, color photographs of the result that you want to get to. So if you go down to 65 pounds and go back to 160, visualize a 65-pound body. It sounds bogus, but your subconscious mind doesn't understand logic. It understands pictures. Next technique, very powerful. It's called constructive interrogation. If you ask your subconscious a question, it'll work overtime until it finds the answer. Listen to this question. Listen to this question. How am I achieving oneness with God in the next year of meditation practice? Listen to the structure of this sentence. How am I achieving oneness with the God force through my meditation practice in the next year? The sentence is designed to tell your subconscious that you are already on your way to oneness with God. You're not saying if, you are saying, how am I achieving oneness with the God force? When you give your subconscious a question like that, it'll work overtime 24/7. It'll investigate your meditation, it'll investigate your obsessions, it'll investigate whatever is keeping you from samadhi, and it'll find the answer. Please use constructive questions. In this world, where is my woman with these qualities? Not if there is a woman, where is my woman with these qualities? Pose that question. That's the third technique. Subconscious will take that extremely seriously. It'll take that as a command from your intellectual mind. And subconscious mind just says, yes, ma'am. It takes orders. This is why when you have a 5 a.m. flight and you say to yourself, oh my God, I have to get up at 4:30 tomorrow and my iPhone is dead, you will get up at 3:45 because you've issued a command to your subconscious. You will definitely get up. Somebody's snickering. Somebody didn't get up. Yeah. Okay, so visualization, affirmation, constructive questions. Next one, even more powerful. This is in the Vedantas. Okay? The Vedas say one of the most powerful, advanced forms of reaching deep meditation is to incite the emotion that you are already there. So in a couple of days, I'm going to come to my class and say, touch the thumb and the first finger and incite the emotion of oneness already. This is very different from visualization. Like I ask you, what would deep tranquility feel like in the first 30 seconds of your meditation? This is actually written in a poetic Sanskrit language, that inciting the emotion as if you're already outside your comfort zone will reprogram your subconscious mind. Do you get the instruction? It's different from visualization. Like you're about to meditate, you say, what would it feel like to be in deep tranquility right at the beginning of your meditation? And that immediately affects your meditation. Finally, it's called the supreme practice of yoga. This is the one that can change you in 5 minutes. I'm not making you empty promises. If you're brave enough, try it. Here's the last technique, the supreme practice of yoga. Yoga says, your name is not Judy Miller. Neither do you have a social security number, neither